I'm Scott Jorgens from GP Support North. We're talking about FP&A, financial planning and analysis with Vivid Reports. Vivid is a new partner of ours. They've been in the market for a number of years, working with GP as well as more recently with Business Central. And we're really excited to have them on board. We already have our first 3 clients together, and I'm sure more to come. They are a cloud-based database for financial reporting. They have the full automation suites for budgeting and forecasting. It uses an Excel front end. For those that have seen other webinars of ours, that may seem familiar. And they are bringing quite a bit more affordability. So we're very excited to be able to extend that to those on the line. We have clients that are both on GP as well as clients that are on Business Central, and Vivid Reports is a great addition to both. For those that are on Business Central, we wanted to promise to talk about roadmaps. There's a lot of new and improved features and functions that came out in Wave 2 release, which was just last month. Improved ease of use based on user feedback and individuals that voted online for key features and functions within Business Central. It's continuing to evolve with Copilot and AI capabilities. Microsoft Copilot is still in preview for the parts that are embedded within Business Central, but there's some analysis assistants that work with the analyze mode and the pivot tables that are kind of like smart lists. AI for bank rec and making those matching, sales line item suggestions. The marketing text one came out a while ago, and then some future ones are going to be some OCR capabilities. So we're really excited with Business Central and all the pieces that are continuing to be rolled out as it continues to mature and further evolve. For those on Dynamics GP, this may be new news to you, or it may not be. Earlier this year, Microsoft announced end of life for Dynamics GP. The roadmap went from 2028 in the past. Now it's going to 2029, and that's considered to be end of life of September 2029. They announced this September of this year, so basically gave us a 5-year notice. Come 2031, they're going to stop any extended software security patches. So if your organization has a policy to say you should not be using software that is no longer supported by the software manufacturer, then 2031 is really your end date. 2029 is going to be the end of any new feature functions, as well as end of Canadian payroll and US payroll for those that are using those tool sets. Endeavour earlier this summer made a 10-year pledge, and that's 2024 to 2034. And we're continuing to grow our team of GP resources, and we're currently supporting 550 GP clients. A number are moving to Business Central, but we're also picking up additional GP clients that are looking for better support. And it's really, the grass is greener on the other side. Options for Dynamics GP clients: you can stay on GP short term. Mid-terms getting a little more risky. Long term, the risk is going up. You're going to have issues with compatibility and obviously security concerns further down the road. Endeavour has a variety of GP to Business Central assessments that we can help you with, and really, it helps you understand what is the cost, what is the effort for you, what is the effort for Endeavour, and how some of the pieces map together. It's going to provide really basically an extra data input for your planning, whether that's 1 year, 2 years, 3, or 5 years out. We can go through the variety of processes with you. If you're already on Business Central, thank you for your business. If you're on GP, thank you for your business. Digital transformation is all about helping you get more out of your systems. And if you're not planning to move from GP to Business Central in another 2 years, there are some key things you can do now to make your business better, and then bring them with you when you move to a new system. If you're on Business Central, you've implemented in the last 1, 2, or 3 years, now is a perfect time for a strong phase 2. And that phase 2 is digital transformation. Let's look to review your business processes? How can we automate your finance team with approvals processes or other automations? How can we help you close your books faster? Within the digital transformation white papers, there's the orange one and the blue one. You have the links there. Recommendation is build line of business metrics. How can we extend the value of your financial systems to a broader line of business teams? So your sales team, your marketing team, production teams, delivery teams, customer service teams. There's a lot of metrics, and finance are the experts in math and numbers and metrics. How can we leverage the key data that's in Microsoft Dynamics GP or Business Central and extend that out to them in a self-service and really help them get more out of your systems? So if we look at the digital transformation of these four things, really Vivid Reports ticks many of those boxes. Helps you to review your business processes. There's automations within reporting and analytics, self-service functions, and can free up time for your finance team to spend more time on analysis, more time on additional value-add functions. And that really comes down to, if you're on GP, maybe you're freeing up time to look at some other side-up desk projects to help bridge the gap until you move to Business Central. And those that are on Business Central, now's a great time to get even more value out of your systems. So with that said, thank you for your patience and waiting in the lobby a little bit earlier. We are ready to go. Christine, why don't you share your screen, and I'll let you continue to introduce yourself.
All right. Thank you. You can see my screen, Scott?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Now you have it in slide mode. Yeah. Did you want it in presentation mode, or does it matter?
Yep.
There we go.
Awesome. Well, thank you to the Endeavour team for inviting me on this webinar today. I'm excited to spend the next 45 minutes or so with you. So a little bit about the company, a little bit about myself. So Vivid Reports has been around for a long time. We've been doing this since 1999. Our software is very mature. It's very stable. It's very flexible. And it is made to grow with your company. So whether it be, you're growing through acquisitions, you're just having a huge amount of growth within your organization, or if you're planning from going from GP to Business Central, Vivid will be there along the way. A little bit about myself. I have been in the GP world for a very long time, since 1995 to date myself. I'm very familiar with GP. I worked very closely with Management Reporter, with other Excel-based reporting solutions. And, I think you're really going to like Vivid. It's very simple, it's very stable, and it's built to grow with you. The way Vivid is set up is that it is a data warehouse. It does require SQL Server, and it doesn't matter whether you're using GP or you're using Business Central. We can fit with all of those environments. It's just a matter of knowing where will the Vivid data warehouse reside. Typically, environment will put the data warehouse on the same server as the GP environment, or if you're using something like Business Central, where it's cloud-based, we offer hosting services to house the data warehouse for you. Once the data warehouse is set up, we will establish a read-only connection between your accounting system and Vivid, and we will pull what we need into our data warehouse. So that is all the general ledger, accounts, segments, dimensions, transactions, etc. There's an ongoing integration that occurs, of course, to bring over incremental changes from your ERP into Vivid. Once the data warehouse is set up, there is a small Excel add-in that needs to be installed on your workstation, and that will give you access to the Vivid environment. And I'll get to that in just a moment. When it comes to the implementation of Vivid, it's a very rapid implementation. You can be up and running with Vivid in a short amount of time. And that's because it's Excel-based. You already know Excel. The finance team typically lives and breathes Excel all day. So when we're going through the implementation, we're simply teaching you how do you integrate your Vivid data or your general ledger information into Excel, into these refreshable reports. Typically, it takes about 8 hours of training for you to be fully trained on our software. And what we'll do is we'll look at your existing Excel statements, and we will go through what we call vividizing it. So we're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're simply going to activate Vivid row by row, column by column. One of the things that Vivid is also known for is our excellent customer service and customer support. We want to build long-lasting relationships with both our partners and our clients. We want to be reachable long after the implementation is complete. You have a question on Vivid, we're here to help. Just because the implementation is complete, that doesn't mean that you can't reach out to us directly. We offer 8 hours of support is included with your subscription, and we welcome those conversations. We typically respond to our clients within an hour. These are just some of the features that are included with Vivid. I'm going to go through all of these during the demo, but they're just quick bullet points of some of the highlighted features, like reporting trees, full consolidations between multiple companies, multi-currency reporting, automated distribution of your reports. And we also have a web application. So being able to publish those reports not only via an Excel sheet, but you also have the option to distribute them via the web, which means it doesn't require Excel and it doesn't require anything installed on the workstation. Within our Vivid CPM product, and in case you're wondering, CPM stands for Corporate Performance Management. That is essentially our financial reporting and budgeting tool. But the budgeting is module is an optional module. It's something that perhaps can be phased in, but it allows you to take control of your budget spreadsheets. I'm sure some of you can relate to having these massive budget spreadsheets. They're linked one to another to another. You fear having to insert a new row because it's going to break 5 other things. And then you need to consolidate all that information so that you can see where you're at on your total budget for the year. And then you have to take that information and get it back into the ERP, either via an import with GP or Business Central. So with Vivid's budgeting module, it allows you to activate Vivid on those rows and columns and push data. So you're pushing those budget values from Excel into our data warehouse. Then you let Vivid do all the consolidating, all the reporting. Pulling in a budget summary report is just automatic. So it's a nice, simple, cost-effective budgeting solution that will really allow you to take control of your budget spreadsheets. So you can phase Vivid, you can transition from your existing reporting solution to Vivid from GP into BC in a variety of different ways. So this is just a sample of what it could look like. So if you're using GP today, you can implement Vivid on your existing GP environment. Like Scott said earlier, it's a full replacement of Management Reporter. Once you've got that going, you can roll out what we call Vivid Viewer licenses to your leadership and management team and just give them a feel of how to refresh their own reports, how they can drill into the actuals, into the transactional information so that they can answer their own questions about their fiscal results. After that, maybe it's a good time to review budgeting. Your budget season may be just around the corner, so you want to start looking at automating some of your budget processes and reducing the amount of time it takes to compile these budget spreadsheets. All of that, you can have all of that in place, and then at that moment, if you decide later on to move to Business Central, all of that is transferable. You don't lose anything. All of that information is in the data warehouse, and it will follow you when you go into Business Central. You can go back and refresh a GP Vivid report, even long after your GP environment may be decommissioned. So again, Vivid is there for the long haul. It's something you can implement now, and it would be one less thing to have to review if or when you go to Business Central.
That's great. Thanks, Christine. So those that are on Business Central already, you may be using Jet Reports. This would obviously replace it, and Jet Reports doesn't have budgeting. Insight Software does have a different budgeting through an acquisition, but it doesn't really work together and is quite expensive. The speed and ease of using the cloud-based model with the consolidations and pulling those pieces together is just fantastic with Vivid. And then as your next screen there, I was going to just jump into that.
Yep.
There's some, why don't you talk about those tools to replace MR and
yeah. So as a way, if you might be using FRX, or if you're using Management Reporter, we have what's called our converter. We can take an existing management report catalog and put it through our converter, and it produces a finished, refreshable, Vivid report. So what that means for the implementation is that you substantially reduce the implementation time it would take to take your existing MR reports and move them into Vivid. It's a great way to save time. We do still encourage you to go through the process of building one report from the ground up, because it's a really good training process, and we want to try and make you as self-sufficient as possible. But we realize, everyone's busy. You've got a lot on your plates. So after you've built that first report, we can convert the rest of your reports from MR into Vivid, which will save you a tremendous amount of time on the implementation.
Yes, a lot of time. Business Central really doesn't work with Management Reporter. So if you're moving from GP to Business Central, you need a new reporting tool and you need to rebuild your reports. This is far faster than rebuilding all your reports because you're just converting them all.
Okay, so what I wanted to mention quickly on this slide is we do sell two products. Today's event will be strictly on the Vivid CPM product, which is both financial reporting and budgeting. But we do have a sister product called Vivid Flex. So this would be similar to, if you're old enough to remember, like myself, Crystal Reports or SQL reporting services. It's an operational tool. So it's a way to get both operational reports and financial reports in one platform using Excel. So you can have one Excel spreadsheet producing up like above on this top report here. This is coming from the GL. And then you have an operational report that could be coming from sales order processing, from your sales data, your inventory data, manufacturing data. You can pull that information using Vivid Flex. Happy to talk about that further if you'd like more information. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and jump into the demo. If you do have questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat window. And Scott, if you can just let me know when there's a question, I'm happy to stop and answer it. I will also stop along the way during the demo to see if there are any questions.
Thanks, Christine.
All right, so you can see here I have Excel open. There's a Vivid CPM tab. So that's a small Excel add-in that needs to be installed on the workstation. And I'm going to go ahead and log in. These logins are typically managed by the finance team. So the finance team can determine who has access to what, which company, which department. They can put in some restrictions in place to limit what users can see. So I'm just going to start with a finished report. It's a really basic report. It's nothing super fancy, but I want to point out a few key pieces here. Over here, this is just a basic Excel sum, your variance column, very basic Excel formula. Over here, this is what's coming from Vivid. Notice I do not have any formulas in the individual Excel cells. And that, to me, if you have to manage all those formulas, that defeats the purpose of having an automated Excel-based reporting solution. You don't want to have to manage all those formulas. I'll dive into how we built this report momentarily, but I'll just show you the finished result. I'm going to go ahead and click on this control panel button. These are my prompts. I can prompt for a variety of different things. I have a reporting tree. This is my reporting tree that has been built. We go through that during training. You can set up multiple reporting trees and reuse them on all of your reports. Very similar to Management Reporter. You have one tree and you can attach the tree to multiple catalogs. You make a change to the tree, it rolls down to all of your reports immediately. So I'm going to go ahead and click on New York State, and we do integrate for Business Central. We integrate with dimensions. So you may have different dimensions set up in Business Central, whereas in GP, we refer to those as account segments. I'm going to go ahead and pick New York State, and I want to run the report for July. I've refreshed the report. It's going out to the data warehouse and pulling in those results. You can see here, these are static numbers. I can share this report with an unlimited number of recipients. They do not need a Vivid license to view these totals. If you want to give these users the ability to drill down, that's when you need a Vivid license. So I'm going to have my cursor here right on the 34679, and over here in the toolbar, there's the analysis section of the toolbar. This is where you can start drilling into the financial results. So I'll go ahead and click drill down. You can see there's 34679, there's 34679. It's a roll-up of these GL accounts. I can pivot this information if I want to see the total based on the account number, or perhaps based on a different segment or a different dimension. If I click on any of these accounts, these are the transactions that make up that total. So these transactions are coming from our data warehouse, but remember, the originating source of this information is pulling from GP or Business Central. There's an ongoing integration that occurs between GP and Vivid. It can be set on a schedule. We would have a conversation with you to determine how often is that integration going to occur. It could be once a day, once every hour, once every 5 minutes. So additional information that we have on these transactions are stored down below here. So you can see I have a details button here. These are all the fields that we bring over from Vivid into our data warehouse. Any of these fields you can publish on this screen simply to avoid the extra click. You can drill into the journal entry just to see the debits and credits. And of course, you can filter on any of these columns. You can export this to Excel. So for example, if I click on this button right here, this is going to show me all the transactions for all of these GL accounts. I can export this to Excel if I want to do any kind of reconciliation or a VLOOKUP. Vivid works with high volume of transactions, GL accounts. Again, this is the data warehouse. We have the ability to tweak it. If we need to do some small adjustments to the integration, we have that flexibility because we have full control over our data warehouse. If you click on any of these cells, you can see that the window automatically refreshes. If I click on this particular transaction, I also integrate with document paperless AP, document images. If you're using document attach in GP, we can pull up the image that you have stored in GP. If you use something like QuickTag, DocuLink, MetaViewer, we can integrate those images into Vivid. We don't store the images in our database. We simply want to link this transaction to wherever the image is stored based on the vendor ID, the invoice number, etc. We also have the ability to drill into vendor history. So in GP, it's very similar to the transaction by vendor screen where you can see your work open in history. Now, my environment here is not integrated to GP because GP has terrible demo data. But just goes to show you, you can click on this button and it'll show you everything that's gone through a particular vendor, what invoices, what checks, what EFT payments, when were they paid, the distributions, etc. So that was the basic drill down window. I also want to show you other ways you can drill into your data. Remember, the idea with Vivid is you spend less time compiling on your reports on a monthly basis and more time analyzing, right? Your time is better spent reviewing the fiscal results than it is copying and pasting, doing VLOOKUPs, doing links to other spreadsheets to produce your statements. So I'm going to click on drill across. Drill across is what I call the trend analysis. So you can see month over month, year over year. Right now I'm on advertising and promotion. You can see my cursors on that cell. And I ran the report for July of 2029. There's July 2029. There's June, there's May, there's April this year versus last year. You can add as many years as you want. You can add budget information, forecast information into this window. You have this nice little graph for comparatives. You can even flip it to a timeline view. So am I trending in the right direction? If you click on these cells, you can see how the window just automatically changes. So that's and of course you can drill into the accounts and the transactions directly from this window. So that's drill across. Drill compare, that is your variance analysis. Now, I've got a $455 variance here, and I'm using Excel conditional formatting. That's the beauty of using Excel as your core tool, because Excel comes with all this really cool, charts, graphs, Excel conditional formatting. Those are all really cool features that you can start making your statements a little more dashboardy. You can add charts and KPIs directly off of refreshable financial results. So I'll just switch this back here. So getting back to drill compare, how do I know what department, what account number is creating this variance? Okay, you may have a highly summarized report, total sales minus COGS is your net profit, comparing this year versus last year, and you have a large variance. So if you use drill compare, you can drill into the details of your variance. So I'm comparing column E, which is my actuals, with column F, which is my budget. I can sort this based on the variance, and then I can see that Blueprints Buffalo came under budget on their revenue targets versus Blueprints New York City came in over budget. And you can see the transactions related to those balances. So think of other things you can do with Vivid. Just a basic trial balance. Cash flow statement. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to build a cash flow statement in Management Reporter, but I've literally pulled my hair out trying to get that working because it's very hard to do, and sometimes you're not even able to do it. But with Vivid, cash opening balance, cash activity, cash net balance, those are all things that we can do in Vivid very easily. A few other sample reports that I'd like to show, starting to add charts and graphs. This is a Vivid report. This is all refreshable. That's coming from the GL. If I click refresh, it's going to pull in these most current balances. And then I just added just a really basic chart. There's so much charting and graph information out there that's built into Excel. It's really easy to start incorporating charts and graphs onto your reports. These are still drillable values, so I can just imagine, if you're presenting to a board, you're presenting these financial results, you've got a graph, and you want to drill into these accounts and balances, it's very easy to do. Something like this. Let's have a look at this. Now we're going to jump into how do you build these reports? How do you maintain them? You'll notice here, these are the same rows that I used on the first report. I just changed the column definition. This percent column, it's just a basic if statement to avoid the divide by zero error. In Management Reporter, it's called change base row, right? Management Reporter, it's a great tool, but sometimes it's a little bit hard to learn, right? How do you know that you want a simple calculation is called change base row? With Vivid, you just pull in the GL balances and all the calculations are your basic Excel functions. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh this report. I need to make a change to this report. Let's say consulting. I added a new GL account. I need to incorporate that change on my report. I'm going to unhide some columns here. Vivid uses these little red comments. Usually you hide those. You're not going to present them on your report. Those red comments are tied to this section of the toolbar. That's the building section. Only report builders have access to that. I'm going to open up Filter Builder. Think of Filter Builder like a filing cabinet. You have categories, which is like a file folder. You may have a category for income statement, balance sheet, OPEX report, etc. Within my income statement category, I have 35 rows that are tied to GL account balances. There's consulting. Everything's highlighted here in yellow because that's the row that I was on in my statement. Over here, this is telling me that segment 1, S1, and for those that are on Business Central, S1 represents the account number, is between this number and this number. Any accounts that you add that fall within that range will automatically be included. You can test that query here, and it'll tell you which accounts are included. If you add accounts outside that range, then you do need to adjust your filter here and your expression to include those new accounts. So I'm going to widen that range, and I'm going to change the description so that you can see how this flows through on all of your reports. So I'll go ahead and save that. Okay. Our first training session, we spend quite a bit of time building up your filing cabinet, and that's where our MR converter will save you time. You don't have to manually create all of these filters and categories. Our MR converter will do that for you. Okay, so I've made a global change. This is stored centrally on the server. I'm going to refresh. You can see my name pops up here, and all of these columns automatically change to reflect the new account. Let's go back to this report. I have not touched this report. I'm going to go ahead and click refresh. You can see my name's going to pop up, and this value changed because it's including more accounts. So that's a quick taste of financial reporting. There's so many more things I can show you. I just want to be respectful of your time, and I want to leave time for questions at the end. Consolidations. Quickly talk about consolidations. When I click on my control panel, if you look at my reporting tree, I may have multiple companies. So you may have a Canadian company, you may have a US company, you may need to convert the US company into Canadian dollars or vice versa. Vivid can handle all of that. The exchange rates would be stored in Vivid. If you have them stored somewhere else, we can also set up an automated job to pull those exchange rates into Vivid so that you don't have to maintain them in two places. But we can have a spot rate for balance sheet, average rate for P&L. We can have a different rate for budgets versus maybe a retained earnings has a different rate. Vivid's very flexible. So you'll see, let's just quickly show you if I do a fully consolidated statement, if I click on this value, now I can see, well, these accounts came from company number 1. These accounts came from company number 2. Okay, so consolidations are seamless. If any of you are using MEM, Binary Streams MEM application, we do fully integrate with MEM. It works really, really well. We have a number of clients using MEM, both on Business Central and GP. I'll just point out 2 more things before I jump into budgeting. When it comes to balancing your reports, we will help you just put a few best practices in place so that you can see right away whether you're in balance or not in balance. If you are not in balance, then we can use what's called our report check to check for missing or duplicated accounts. That's all part of training. Automation here, this is what we use to roll out reports and replicate it across your reporting tree. So you may have different report packages. You know, Joe in, Toronto, he gets these 3 reports, and then Jane in New Brunswick, she gets these 4 reports. They're the same report, they're just refreshed for their departments or their location. So instead of having to manage all of those spreadsheets, we would manage one, which is your master sheet, and then you can replicate it using automation and email them off to the appropriate recipients, either as an Excel sheet or a PDF. So I'm just going to quickly pause here. That was what I wanted to show you on financial reporting. I will talk a little bit about budgeting. If there are any questions, I don't see anything in the Q&A at the moment. But if there are any questions, feel free to ask. Okay. All right. Let's talk about budgeting. So again, our budgeting software is an add-on module to financial reporting. Financial reporting is a prerequisite before you can start using budgeting. So you have to be fully trained on the financial reporting piece before we can start working on budgeting, which can be quick. You know, if budgeting is your primary focus, we can still go through the financial reporting trainings pretty quick and jump right into budgeting. Okay, that's not a problem. So if you look at this spreadsheet, we focus our budgeting implementation on your budget input sheets. That's really important to distinguish between an input sheet and a summary sheet. A summary sheet will be a consolidation of your input sheets. So usually your input sheets will be far more detailed than your summary sheets. So something like this, you may have an input sheet that reflects your actuals. And when I talk budgeting, it's not just your annual budget. I'm also talking about forecasting. You may have a quarterly forecast. You may have a multi-year plan. You can have an unlimited number of types of budgets within Vivid. You can have version 1, version 2 budget. It doesn't matter. They're very easy to preload. You can preload a budget with actuals. You can copy last year's budget into this year's as a starting point. So in this situation here, remember the actuals are automatically being pulled by Vivid. If you didn't have Vivid, this would be a lot of work. There'd be a lot of copying and pasting and VLOOKUPs and links to trial balances. And, you'd have a ginormous number of tabs to manage. That's a lot of work, right? It's super time consuming. And I'm sure you dread it every year because if you need to make a change, you're going to fear breaking 5 other things. But with Vivid, these actuals are automated, and of course they're drillable, and you can refresh. They're refreshed automatically as things are posted in GP or BC. Over here, the areas in yellow, I just shaded those yellow as a visual cue to the end user that, hey, I want you to enter information in these cells. So I'm going to focus on the annual budget, but it's the exact same process for forecasting. So I'm going to put a value in this cell. So this is my New York City consulting revenue line item. I put a value there. Vivid doesn't care how you come up with that value. It can be a formula. It could be a link to another spreadsheet. It could even be a calculation off of one of our Vivid Flex reports. Okay. I'm going to click that there. I've entered the value. I'm going to click commit. So now you can see here, there's the budgeting section of the toolbar. If I click commit, it validates the report. It validates what you're trying to commit. It checks, is the budget open? Do you have access to it? Does the GL account exist? Because what Vivid will do is it compiles a GL account based on what you have set up on the row and what department or location do you have set up on the column. If I review this, it's telling me that I'm going to be saving $2,500 to this GL account, to this fiscal year, into this period, into this budget. So I'm going to go ahead and commit, and now I'm pushing that value into the Vivid data warehouse. I can attach notes on my budget. So over here, I have a comment section. So listing notes with, we'll call it Endeavour. Okay. And then I go on to my next row, and I can also use the distributor. The distributor window is a great way to quickly populate your budget based on certain trends. So you'll notice I have my annual budget, I have a forecast, and I have my actuals. These actuals, I can click on them, click on these values, and drill into the transactions directly from this window. But let's say I'm going to enter a $2,400 annual budget. Just move this over here. So up here, you can tell I'm on my New York City surveying line item, and it did an even distribution. If I click on this graph here, there's my flat $200 budget. These are my actuals. You can see I have some seasonalities. I may be busier in the summer versus winter. I want to spread my budget based on the same trends. So instead of doing the calculation, let Vivid do the calculation for you. So over here, I'm going to say spread this budget based on my same trends. So you can see I've got my annual budget has now been spread based on those same seasonalities. And then I can see I'm a little under budget. I want to increase it. Let's increase it by 15%. Click the little calculator. Now I can see I'm well in line with my actuals, and maybe I want to go a little bit higher. So let's increase it by another 5%. Okay, so now my budget's a little bit higher than my last year actual. So I'm going to click apply. You can see over here, it populated those values into the appropriate cell. Click the down arrow. Now I'm on my freight revenue. And I'll just put in $12,000. Click apply. So you can see I've started to populate my budget. And click commit. Okay, so now that's all been committed to the database. Now you need to do the exact same thing, but for a different location. Again, if you didn't have Vivid, this would be a lot of work. You know, you may have to copy the tab. You want to link it to a different trial balance. It's a lot of work. But with Vivid, I'm just going to go ahead and click the control panel. Now, instead of New York City, I'm going to pick Buffalo. All of my actuals are going to be refreshed for Buffalo. You can drill down into the actuals, look at the transactions, and now you can see I have not committed anything for Buffalo. So let's go ahead and put in a few values. Okay, and I'll commit that. Okay, now you want to consolidate this. Again, if you didn't have Vivid, you'd probably have a summary tab at the bottom, and it's adding up this tab plus this tab plus this tab, and it's just so much work, and it's error prone. But with Vivid, all I'm going to do, same spreadsheet. It could be an entirely different spreadsheet. It can be your income statement, and you add 2025 budget column, and it's going to consolidate everything for you automatically. So I filled in the budget for New York City, and I filled in the budget for Buffalo. I want to see a roll up. So I'm going to click on New York State. Click refresh. Remember, I don't have any formulas. There's no linking. If I click on this value, you can see up here, it's just 3,700. Click drill down. There's the 2,500 that I entered for New York City. There's the 1,200 for Buffalo. And if I hover over that, there's my budget comment or my assumption that I entered for New York City. So consolidations are seamless. During the budget implementation, we focus again on the budget input sheets at the most detailed level. There's one last thing I want to show you, and that's called budget transactions. So that is when you need to enter more information about these budget totals. So you'll notice down below here, I have a row here that's gray. It's not yellow. That's my commercial construction revenue line item. You can't budget on this spreadsheet on that row. It's been deactivated because I have another tab here called budget transactions. There's my commercial construction revenue line item. And I have these transactions. So they're triggered. These are Vivid transactional rows. Over here, I want my project manager to tell me, well, which projects are you anticipating closing in the new year? So I'm going to build a new library. It's at 555 Main Street. And it's going to kick off in January. So there's my budget row over here. And it's going to continue in February, and it wraps up in March. And then I've got another project. I'm going to build a new school. I'm doing a renovation on a school. You know, it's at 66 7th Street. And that's a small project that'll be in January only. I'm going to commit this. So when you're committing this, you're not only committing the grand totals to the GL account, but you're also committing these transactions. Remember, that's getting pushed into the data warehouse. If I go back to this one, remember this See how it's blank rows? There's no formulas. I'm just going to click refresh. I click on that value, click drill down, click on the account number, and you can see there's the details. So think of marketing campaigns, travel budget, different expenses, maybe an IT expenses, things like that, subscriptions. You can list them off so that you can see how did you come up with this number. So again, Vivid's budgeting tool, it's still an Excel-based solution. You know, I'm not going to tell you that it's not, because it is clearly a budgeting, Excel-based budgeting solution. However, we are not going to overhaul your existing budget process. Typically what we'll do is we'll ask to have a look at your spreadsheets today and we'll reuse those. So when you think about implementing a budgeting solution, you don't have to necessarily retrain all of your budget managers on a whole new system. We're focusing on the finance team. We're activating budgeting on those rows and on those columns so that we can eliminate all of those spreadsheet linking and, you know, the complexities that comes with making sure they balance, pulling in the actuals, etc.
Thanks, Christine. That's really powerful.
All right, and I'm right on time.
Right on time. Any questions out there, please type them into the chat. I'll jump into sharing my screen again, and we can just quickly get into the wrap-up. And if questions come back, then we'll reopen up to Christine. So thank you, Christine. Great financial reporting and obviously the budgeting aspects. And it's nice to not overcomplicate with silly models. Like it's getting to the Excel, and we're going to pull the pieces together and map that back to the data mart. We did have a fantastic promotion from Christine and team at Vivid Reports. BOGO, buy one, get one free. Buy one report builder, which are sort of the super users, and then get one of the viewers for free as you're moving together. Valid for those on today's webinar. So thank you everyone for attending. Those were watching the recording. Next time you got to attend. And this will expire basically end of year, December 20th, just because no one wants to work over the holidays. Quick recap on Endeavour Solutions. So we have 3 lines of business: Endeavour, purely CRM, and GP Support North. Those each have advisory, implementation, and optimization and support teams. We're all about supporting you midterm, long-term, short-term, helping you get more out of your Microsoft business applications, and obviously an implementation or a migration if you are changing your systems. We're now 100 consultants across coast to coast. We have people in Halifax, Toronto, Montreal, London, Edmonton, and Vancouver. And our core values shared amongst the team is integrity, trust, and accountability. We use that in our internal training, our internal meetings, and obviously recruiting and retention. We got a lot of top talent that have been with us for 10, 15 years, as well as newer additions, especially those on the cloud side. And many of them bring years of experience on previous systems, having retooled and rediscovered all the values of Business Central. Just some of the extra credentials about Endeavour, continuing to win awards each year. And, we got 1,200 implementations and upgrades, 900 clients. And that's a large client base. And we're definitely eager to help you each get more out of your systems. Contact Endeavour. So some names that you may recognize: Trish, Paul, and Jerry, as well as Steve, James, and Johnny, with phone numbers and emails here if you want to reach out to them direct. And obviously online at www.endeavorsolutions.com or www.gpsupportnorth.com or purelycrm.com. Steve's contact details are in each one of the websites, and obviously easy to reach out to him, and either himself or a member of our team will be able to assist you. So with that said, Have a wonderful day. And let's open up to questions. Questions, anyone?
Maybe one thing I'll mention, it's a question that you may be thinking that comes up often, is with the budgeting module, I often get asked is, can you put the budget back into GP or in Business Central? So we don't push any data directly into GP or Business Central, but we do allow you to export the budget out of Vivid. It's in a nice, easy format where you have all your accounts on the rows, periods 1 through 12 across to the right. And that's usually a really nice format to import it back into Business Central.
Yeah, you want that control to have version 1 and version 2. You don't want automatic updates to be surprising people.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Thanks, Christine.
Okay.
I definitely appreciate it. It's been a pleasure working with you.
problem.
Thanks for all the prep and today's great demo. For next steps, beyond reaching out to our team, it's really setting up a time to talk with Christine and others at Vivid Reports about the CPM and budgeting, and seeing if it's the right fit for you, and obviously a deeper dive beyond today's discussion, both with the Vivid CPM as well as with the Vivid Flex that brings in the non-financial data. Thanks so much, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Have a wonderful day.
Have a good day.